Hey, John.
Hi, I'm doing a fireside chat
Yes.
in the morning with my coffee.
yes.
And I chose a darker microphone
By
because
choice?
oftentimes there's like a choice of like a super like bright one and a
Uh-huh.
darker one. So, because my skin's kind of like not the right color or something. So, anyways, trying it out. How are
Oh,
you?
I'm good. Yeah, they didn't even ask me. It just like gave me the darker one because they assumed that I want a darker mouthpiece than the darker one. So I say okay, but I did. But hey, it works.
Well, like I remember like I did a talk at the whatever Commonwealth Club with Tristan Walker,
Mm-hmm.
but the previous year I complained to the people
Oh.
and said they only had like super like pale microphones,
Uh-huh.
and sure enough the next year they had upgraded. So if you say something, stuff changes sometimes.
Yeah, all it takes is speak up sometimes. Because a lot of people, what I've learned, and what Melinda and I talk a lot about, is a lot of people they're not conscious of how these little things in terms of design and
Right.
experiences affect others
Yep.
because it's not that they have a lack of empathy, it's just a lack of that's not their day-to-day life, it's not their experiences. So they don't know that this matters to me in terms of how I feel, how I do representation.
Yeah.
So thank you for speaking up at the Commonwealth Club.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I really enjoyed sort of awakening and discovering that I'm an Asian-looking person
Uh-huh.
because it's been awesome.
Yeah. When did that
Yeah,
awakening
right?
start? And we just going rogue here. Like John and I, like
Yeah.
I can't remember how we initially met. I don't know if I reached out on Twitter. That's how I met so many people over the years. And then you invited me to a Sunday brunch you were
I
doing.
had a dim sum brunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about the brunch? 'Cause I think the brunch is important. Can you talk about what you're doing with the brunch?
Just like randomly invited people I saw on Twitter who were doing interesting things in the Bay Area and said, "Hey, you want to come to lunch and eat greasy food together?" And people showed up.
Yeah, I mean it was a great group and it was fun. And then after
Fun.
that, John and I walked along the Embarcadero.
Long walk.
Yeah, and this was maybe
It's good.
4 or 5 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yes, I learned your story.
Yeah,
It's
and I learned yours.
fascinating.
Yeah,
A CNN, like all this stuff he's been doing for a long time, and look at this,
yeah.
all these people.
It's a family affair. It's a
Oh,
family affair. But I learned your story too, and it's one of the things where you know how you meet people and you align in terms of energy and your values, and you know they're a good human, and you don't always have to communicate with them, but you know they're there, right? And you get an email or you see engagement on Twitter, and you just know they're there. To me, like John is one of those. He's one of those good humans who has similar but way different experiences, but can tell at the time at the core, he valued this work right here. He valued inclusion, he valued diversity, and has his own experiences. I'd love real quick if you can talk about some of your experiences from, you know, a little bit how you got to here, like how you got to Automatic.
oh yeah. Well, I think I was in the ivory tower for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really good. But then I found this book called The Audacity of Hope
Yes.
in 2008.
Uh-huh.
It was a very inspiring book. And then all the things that it said that I couldn't do, he said, yes, we can. So I was like, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like left the ivory tower, began searching, ended up in Silicon Valley and sort of learned about the venture capital ecosystem, and then decided I want to go in-house. So Matt Mullenweg, Automattic, asked if I would lead design, and I've been doing that for 2 years.
Nice. But you left out some important things. You also was a dean.
A little mine, it's like
Yeah,
past,
he's a dean at a college.
stuff.
Or they
Yeah.
led MIT innovative
past stuff.
initiatives, like crazy amount of experience and wisdom that John has. But what is it like working with Matt? Like, I don't know sure if you talked with Matt about you.
That's
gonna,
fun.
He's going like, hey, I'm gonna go do a
Yeah.
fire chat with Wayne. But like Matt and I hung out in North Carolina like years ago.
Ah,
Years ago, back in my
Yeah.
North Carolina days. And
interesting.
yeah, Matt always came across as one of the smartest, humble, data-driven CEOs in tech who don't get. He's not like getting enough credit. Where you know how you have your CEOs in tech who are out there in the news all the time doing bad stuff.
Flying rockets.
Yeah, flying rockets, trying to get to Mars, but not focus on racism and culture in your own company. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, not trying to name any bad names. But you have people like that. It's in the press all the time, and the tech press covers them if they blink wrong.
Right.
Then you have CEOs who like they have their CEO. They run a major tech company. They don't take a lot of money, but they make a lot of money, and they do other investments, and they're smart as hell, and they're a good person, and they're allies. He's a white male ally, and we don't talk about that. So Matt always came across to me as a smart as hell, data-driven CEO. So when you joined Automattic, I was like, that makes sense.
Oh.
Because he found a good person similar to him, but different backgrounds.
Oh, he's just, he's a wonderful person to get to work with. He is wise beyond his years, and he's passionate about democracy at the core of his company, at the core of what he co-started in the open source world with WordPress. He believes that people should have a right to say what they want to say on their own terms and not let anyone take it away from them. And he's been living this since he's like a teenager.
Yeah.
So that's like really interesting. And so, and he doesn't seek the limelight. And so I just love to get to work with him and his company. It's been transforming for me.
Yeah. And so your title is one of the longest titles, I have to admit.
I made it long so I'd remember what I thought was important.
Oh, that's deep, John. That's deep.
It is.
I've never heard anyone say that before.
Because I knew that when you go in, how many of you have got into a role and forgot why you did it? Thank you. I was like,
Thank you for your honesty.
it happened, right? So I thought, I got to think globally, not just in Silicon Valley.
Okay. I'm looking
And then I need to have not just design, but computational design, which is the transformative kind of design.
Yes.
And inclusion.
Yes.
Because I thought that they were linked somehow, and I wanted to keep it there. That's why my title's so long.
Yeah, global head, you can see it on the screen, but global head of computational design and inclusion.
See that? That's how I remember it. Yeah.
How are you measuring anything?
Well,
it's interesting. I want to see what you answer.
It's great to put inclusion in your title because everyone thinks you work in HR, first of all. You must work in HR. I have a situation or whatever, and everyone goes there immediately. But my response has been that, you can't make great products if you don't consider inclusion.
Can I get a fist bump on that?
Oh, yeah.
Thank
you. Yeah. Well, it's something I learned by being here, working with you and other partners in this area. Just seeing how, if you don't do that, I think unfortunate things happen. And as we know, in the age of machine intelligence, it'll all be encoded, which is a problematic thing.
Yeah. And I don't want people to feel bad or think we're not value or disrespecting people who are in diversity and inclusion roles who are under HR.
Absolutely.
It's fine. I think let me be honest. I actually don't think it's a great idea to have diversity and inclusion roles under HR. HR has its own responsibility. As John talked about in terms of inclusion with product, I strongly believe that if you're an executive in this room, have any sort of power, or if you're in the D&I role, I strongly believe that diversity and inclusion roles should report directly to the CEO and be a part of the executive team across the board, not under HR. I think thank you. I think it's one of those tech culture and business culture systematic processes that is always done this way. And so there's a few companies, so Automattic and a couple other companies where the D&I role reported to the CEO and was on the executive level. And I think that is the way to do it because as you just stated, inclusion affects product, but it also affects company culture. It also affects the business, not just on the HR. And I think that's a huge mistake throughout the entire tech diversity inclusion realm.
Well, it's a complex problem because, by the way, and I know you are too, I'm a big HR fan. I say that HR stands for highly regarded.
Yes.
Because it's a function that gathers all the difficult parts of organization and is accountable to fix it somehow.
Yes.
Which is kind of impossible. So in that sense, I see the diversity and inclusion work in HR as being of a particular kind of important cultural work that has to do with belongingness to a company, which in many senses, there are legal issues, and in just very basic senses, there's things about being an employee that feels welcome. So that work, I think, is really important. And it's been identified with everything involving inclusion. That's why the work that I'm trying to do is to be this other kind of work that in many cases might get criticized for not fitting into that kind of work. And my point is that it's a different kind of work, but it's concordant.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
concordant.
Agreed. Agreed. So let's talk about some of the work you are doing and some examples. I know you're working with a good friend of mine I know over the years, Hodge Flemings in Detroit.
Hodge Fleming, like the closest thing I know to a superhero.
He's a great guy. Follow Hodge Flemings on
Hodge
Twitter,
Fleming.
Instagram. Love his energy. A good human. And let's talk about like some of the work you're doing with Hodge and some of the other things you're doing at Automattic that is connecting to the
Right.
inclusion and diversity work that's different than what we've seen other companies try to implement in terms of strategy to create
Right.
inclusion partnerships.
Well, so you all are generally in this region, but most of you make products for the entire world. Is that right? Do you all make products for the entire world or just San Francisco? I think
Right?
so.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you do that, you run into this problem where the world isn't like this place.
Yes.
And so I think that any place that's smart, and that's just not San Francisco or the Bay Area, that's any university campus, there's a kind of a ignorance of smartness. And so what I've been doing for the past 2 years with Automattic and design and products in general is how do we talk to people who are not in the tech bubble? And by being an all distributed company, we have the advantage that we're neither here nor there. We're everywhere. And so working in Detroit with Hodge Flemings has been transformative because he worked in different neighborhoods in Detroit that I personally would never have visited if it wasn't for Hodge and his network to engage and work with. And each time I just am struck by how dumb I am. You know, it's like someone said to me, like, it's so glad you're helping poor people in Detroit. And I tell them, no, they're helping me see how stupid I am. Because the kind of constraints that a lot of people live in are not the kind of constraints we might live in such a privileged world. The second thing is working with, in Detroit and in Philadelphia, with a team at Drexel. So I'm connecting them all together, so now Hodge, Drexel, et cetera, is I had an epiphany that I was working in a lot of areas with minority entrepreneurs and immigrants, and I thought, I need to go see these people on TV. You know, this like, you know, Trump super conservative, whatever. So I said, I had to go to Appalachia because I met so many people who would say to me, have you read J.D. Vance's Hillbilly Elegy, the New York Times bestseller? It was amazing. And I would say, well, have you been there? No, but the book was amazing. So I wanted to go there. And when I went to Appalachia, my whole world changed. Because within a half an hour, I realized why I wouldn't like Obama either. It was this jarring moment of realizing, wow, this is what's been happening in this region. All the coal mines get shut down. The coal miners all have mandatory drug testing. And opioid usage in Appalachia is very high. So once you remove the mines, it's not just the mines, the whole ecosystem collapses. And time over time, I heard people say, we just want jobs. And we're looking for jobs. So, and I connected Hodge Flemings to Appalachia. So Hodge gave a marketing branding course to kids in Appalachia. So just trying to connect dots right now to see new things and find new relationships.
That's awesome. That's awesome because that's a different way. What I think you described is a different way to develop empathy by offline experiences with other humans. Because it's something that I had to learn when I first moved out here from North Carolina about 6 years ago, I think 7 now. And I went to Mountain View, went to this cafe, and I was sitting on my computer, and I look in the cafe, there's no black people. I sit down, people like, they're moving their stuff like I'm about to literally like grab, I'll take out my own computer, and they're moving their stuff like I'm about to take their computer. And then, you know, you just start seeing the energy is like going like this. And then we walk in, you see the energy like, oh, where do you come from, right? Because it wasn't used to, I mean, things are a little bit better now, but you're still not used to a black man coming into a cafe in Mountain View, working on a computer like everyone else. And what I realized was that that's their experiences. They're not used to it. So when they see something different, it initially triggers a negative reaction that they may see or interact on TV or a different offline experience. So I had to develop empathy because I get it. Because if their only interactions with someone who's different than them or a black man is what they see on TV or someone else with a negative experience, and I walk in, it's triggering those neurons. And so I had to develop empathy for that to help me understand.
Right.
But doesn't mean I like it,
Right.
but it helped me understand.
Right. Well, it's a wonderful thing once you start asking all these questions.
Yes.
Like, I remember when I was in Appalachia, the thing I heard over time is people would say, I speak like this. I speak hillbilly, so I'm stupid. And I thought about, remember Beverly Hillbillies? So if you speak with an accent, we laugh at how stupid they sound or are. And so there's all these stigmas that the mass media has encoded for every type of person that makes it easier to sell the media because it has higher penetration, but it also reinforces these stereotypes. I remember when who's a Star Trek fan? Star Trek fan out there? Yeah, ooh, Star Trek fan.
Can you do it? You did it?
Of course I can do that.
I can't
There we
do
go,
it.
like
Okay.
represent. But I spoke at the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. And
Big deal, big deal.
and I did research on it, and I found this weird moment where I realized I was born the same year that Star Trek started. But I also had a flashback to where someone asked me like who your favorite Star Trek person was. And it was, of course, you love Sulu because you're Asian.
Yeah.
And I said, no, actually, my favorite was Scotty because he was an engineer. I wanted to be an engineer. But then I had this flashback where I realized that as a kid, I thought Sulu was strange because he spoke without a thick accent. And I thought something was wrong with him. Do you know? Because I was so used to hearing people speak with a thick accent looking Asian. And so I just like, wow, like it was so deeply ingrained that I thought Sulu was strange for speaking regular Californian English. So there's these deep things all over the place.
Yeah. No.
And they're fun to find. It's uncomfortable to find them,
Yeah.
but it's fun.
Yeah. I think it's fun if we are in a emotional space to be self-aware of these interactions. Because you're talking about stereotypes.
Yeah.
Right? You're talking about like this, and being able to look back, and what you just articulated was that you were able to look back on why did you think he was strange. But most people, you just running, you just going, you don't know why your employee's upset, you don't know why this person's feeling this way, you don't know why someone's cared about a certain thing. You just go in life without just
You don't.
develop this emotion, then this part of this emotional intelligence of there's something I can learn from this situation. And I want to jump to real quick, why do you value lifelong learning?
Oh, why? It's because I grew up in Chinatown in Seattle. My parents had no education. I wasn't supposed to succeed. I grew up in the poor part of Seattle, which was primarily African American and Samoan American, and I'm an accident. And the only way I got out of it was learning. And so I just believe in learning, but I also believe that every step of the way, I realized how little I failed to learn along the way. Like I just had a flashback to when I was president of Rhode Island School of Design. I remember there was a national incident involving a young gay man who committed suicide over a terrible incident. And it made national news, and it impacted everyone on campus. And we had an evening LGBTQ candle vigil. And to me, it was the first time to ask questions about, wow, like how persecuted is everyone in this category? It really hit me hard. Or I remembered 10 years prior, I was at MIT, and one of my colleagues, a professor, we're best friends, and he's African American, an amazing computer scientist. And he was always joking, like he called me his driver, because I would drive him everywhere. This is before Uber, mind you. I was like, my driver, come over here, driver. I said, yes, driver. So I would drive him all over the place. You know? Brian, he's funny. But we were like walking around campus late at night one night, and then Brian, he's always like joking and joshing and everything. He said, let me show you something, John. And so like we're walking around the hallway, and someone came up to him and thought he was a janitor. And he said, this happens all the time. And he's kind of joking to me, like ha, 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 ha. But it kind of stuck with me in that when you catch these things and find these pieces of data, you start asking, well, what can you do just right now to reverse some of that?
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think that's a very important question. A great segue to end is each one of these situations you described in terms of a data or a measure, and it's all of our responsibility to identify how can we change some of this. Not necessarily other people have responsibility, but it's also our responsibility. How can we change some of the biases, stereotypes, racism that happens in our society? Yeah, cool. Well, I want to thank you, John. Cool. All right.
Thank
Let's
you.
give John a round of applause, please.
Thank you. Thank you.